Thanks for having us out today. The billion-dollar exit. What a great thought. That's the title. That's the title of our segment, guys. But these two guys have pretty well lived that. We're going to talk about the past and how you got here and everything else. But let me go to the immediate present. Lance, I'll start with you, just to get your. So, what keeps you awake at night? What's hot right now? Wait, I know you've got twins.
Yeah, other than the 3-year-old twins that keep me awake at night. The thing that keeps me awake at night currently is the pace of innovation and how it's accelerated over especially the last 5 to 10 years. When I started down this internet journey in '95, no one knew what they were doing, and we were all learning at the same time. And you fast forward 20 years to today, and you look at companies like Amazon that just announced at their last event that they rolled 1,000 new features every single day. That's staggering.
And not something so the fear is you can't keep up with 1,000 new features a day?
Yeah, I mean, the fear is, instead of just coming up with great ideas, executing on those ideas and then moving, is you have to continuously, you have to invest in agile programming, look at what your competitors are doing, and then be able to, run fast and break things, because you don't have time to second think anything anymore. You're better off making a mistake and fixing it as you go along than to sit back and have discussions for weeks and or months and or years about products and services.
Now you got me worried. David, what? Tell me
what keeps me up at night is hitting numbers, for one. I mean, we're in a sales business, so every day and every hour we get measurements of sales numbers. And if there is any dip in sales, then we need to know why and what to do and how to get there. But in the longer term, we need a path to continue to grow. And so we've projected all these great numbers, but how do you get there? That's what keeps me up at night.
Are you glad you're not public? You've been public.
Yes.
I mean, when you're public, and Hotel Reservation Network, I guess, was the public name, but you have every 3 months you have to open your kimono to the world.
It's not just every 3 months. It's all of the distractions related to being a public company. You go from being a CEO and running a organization to being a CEO and having to go to, shareholder meetings with these Goldman Sachs guys with these bright orange suspenders, and you have to make them happy. And that's really not the audience that I truly love. I truly love other business people and folks that are in technology and growing a company. And so being a public company, you have a lot of different responsibilities that are not necessarily good for the business.
Yeah, I think it's very hard to be innovative and be public these days, because the companies that have really done it well are able to hide those things really well. Like Amazon had Amazon Web Services until it got to a size where they had to start reporting it. Google had lots and lots of projects inside Alphabet because they had a search engine and advertising platform that paid the bills and everybody paid attention to. And my fear with, being a public company and being under that scrutiny continuously is I think it has the ability to really stifle an organization, because when you're making an innovative bet, when you're going to say, to go to a Wall Street meeting and say, hey, we're going to invent something that does not exist for a market we don't know exists, but we think it's a really cool idea. They're going to say, no, thank you, next.
And I would echo that, and I would say that all of you out there in small business, you have tremendous advantages over larger businesses. And the biggest advantage you have is that you can think and you can act quickly. And you can always move quicker than a large company, which always has to have 3 meetings and 2 vice presidents, and you have to run it through legal counsel and on and on and on. So you can do things that they can't do. So be small, be nimble, be quick.
But the whole idea, I thought, was to be small and be nimble and be noticed and get listed on the NASDAQ and get a lot of money and, then go roll and build up from that. But, I mean, that's one of the challenges, I think, is that's not That's not a carrot dangling at the end of a stick anymore, is it? It's harder and harder to have an exit strategy, at least that involves, running your own company and taking it public. I mean, doing roll-ups or selling out or whatever. But it's hard to go public now, right?
Go ahead.
When we got to, at SoftLayer, when we got to a point where we were about $500 million in revenues, we did kind of a market check and we invited the banks in, and they said, we think the exit's going to be between $2 and $3 billion. So you can either go public or you can try to sell it today, because there aren't that many companies in the world that can write a check that big. And so we took it one step further, and they went out and checked the market, and there were only 36 companies that were interested who could potentially write a check in the $2 to $3 billion range. Or my other alternative was to go run it a couple more years, and your only option is to go public, or the number of potential buyers considers to drop dramatically.
And at what point did you decide to go public?
At Hotels.com, we didn't decide to go public. We actually sold privately, and then we kept a retained interest in the company. And then the people who bought us pushed us to go public. And so we got in the window just before the 2000, and it was the year 2000, and the window shut about April 2000, and we went public in February 2000. So we got in just before the window shut. We were fortunate in that we focused on profits instead of just thin air stuff like a lot of internet companies at the time, and we performed as well as any NASDAQ company, and we were able to grow our stock, which originally came out an IPO of 16. We grew it to almost 100.
So let's go back and talk, both of you, about beginning your companies and the road, which I trust was rocky and has good stories along the way, to doing it. David, so you were not a tech company, you were a decidedly old tech company. You were an 800 number company, right?
Well, yeah, and then one day, in 1994, we were running a call center hotel company, and one day this guy comes in, his name is Dave Ray. And Dave says there's something revolutionary. It's going to change the world. It's going to connect everybody everywhere, and it's going to be the best-selling platform you've ever seen. So being a conservative guy, the first question I ask is, how much does it cost? He says, nothing. You just put, you pay me a commission, and I'll make sure that I build this technology for you. So he built what became our internet platform, launched us on the internet. The first day, we're getting reservations from Canada, from France, from Japan, and I call Bob up, who's my business partner, and I say, Bob, this is it. This is what we've been looking for, how to distribute our product. And so I called, Dave Ray a few days later, and I said, Dave, we're really, I know that you spent a lot of money building this platform, and it's not that great, and, I'm sure you want your money out, and we'll pay you this for it, and, and we're really sorry, and so we ended up buying him out for, about the cost of his development, and then we got our website back, and that's how we came into technology.
So you're a conservative guy by nature. I mean, obviously it was like a slam dunk right now, but so how do you
kind of like a free lunch today, so.
How do you go out and take a gamble like that?
I didn't consider it a gamble because it wasn't a gamble because the guy was paying for the development of the website. When we saw it work, then we were fishing in a stock pond. I mean, we knew it worked. So we just bought it back and we knew it was going to work, and it turned out to be bigger than we even thought.
Lance, what about you? I mean, how do you transition from being an internet provider to being on the leading edge of the cloud?
I think you have to, what Dave just said, you have to believe and know your product's going to work, even when nobody else in the world thinks it will. From 2000 to 2005, I owned and ran a traditional hosting company where we were provisioning, servers, and our goal was to, outflank your own data centers. If it took you 6 to 12 weeks internally, we could do it in 2 weeks. And I figured out by pure happenstance and automation, I could get that down to 48 hours, down to 24 hours, and we sold more and more and more. And I came up with the idea of, why don't we just rack and stack all of this and sell it by the drink real time? Don't even wait the 24 hours, just make it available. And I invited 9 other members of my management team to breakfast in May 5th, 2005. Did my best sales job. We left the old company that day, started SoftLayer, and when I went out to raise money, we went to Goldman Sachs, and the managing director looked me in the face and he said, I don't understand your value proposition. I said, well, imagine everything inside of a data center, the servers, the compute, the storage, the networking, everything being available by the drink, on demand, ready to go, just sign up online. And he looked at me and he said, if a CIO or CTO can't predict their IT needs more than 6-8 weeks in advance, they should be fired. And this was in 2005. And so I said, well, I disagree. And so we went out, we bootstrapped ourselves, we literally got home loans and sold our cars and went down, I sold ATVs and boats and home equity loans, and 10 guys put together about $1.5 million. And we worked for 6 months writing the software and went live, and then, about a year later, we took our first angel investment. And then 10 years later, we sold the company for $2 billion. And had I listened to the guy at Goldman Sachs, who was the expert, I wouldn't have built one of the first cloud companies in the whole world.
Did he understand what you were telling him? I don't think he did. I think it was a bluff.
He understands today. But it's hard because when I go out and look at new companies and people ask me to invest all the time, there's a difference in being iterative and being innovative. Iterative is the next logical step that everybody can see. You might be able to do it better, more efficient, shave some dollars off. Maybe you have better processes, you have better people, smarter developers. Innovative is you're taking something that exists or some way that's been done and you pivot completely that other people aren't doing in a different way. And just like the 1-800 to doing it over the internet, a completely different distribution model for essentially the same sort of product. And when I look at companies like that and say, okay, is this truly innovative or is this just another Me Too type company?
But you were really, David, on the leading edge of this thing. I mean, the idea of aggregating hotel rooms. Nobody was doing that, were they?
No, they were all calling hotels, on their 800 number. So this was kind of a greenfield play. We had for 2 or 3 years, nobody really caught up. I mean, it was like we had the market all to ourselves, and that's when we grew the most. And then, competition came along. As you say, the Me Too kind of companies came along. And they, got really good at it, and the hotel chains, which were kind of sitting in the background wondering what the internet was, realized that it was the main distribution channel for travel. And they came along too. So at that point, we decided time to exit.
My favorite moment was when you all used to do the hotel rooms for Travelocity. And Travelocity, had the contract, you guys did it. Then there was some aha moment at Travelocity. So, why aren't we doing this?
Well, I mean, Travelocity was certainly, an important customer for us. At one point, I hate to say it, we had some concentration risk there. They were about 25% of our sales. But, they were spending the money on the internet advertising, and we were happily taking the profit because we only paid them when they actually made a sale. It was the affiliate model. So it was perfectly targeted advertising for us, and it was, kind of a drop in the dark for them. So it was very good. They were taking all the risk, we were getting all the reward, and they eventually woke up. So
an entrepreneur, I think, is going to be able to deal with whatever situation comes along and see opportunity. And if you'd come along 5 years later, if you'd been 5 years younger, and you wouldn't have been able to, somebody else would have done that, I guess.
But the point is that, those of you who are how many people in this room are in business right now for themselves? So how many of you wrote a business plan? How many of you still stick to that business plan? Okay. So the answer is that you have to be flexible and adapt to what's out there in the marketplace, because your business plan is not going to be what you see when you actually launch. And I'm sure you had the same experience. And you have to just see, look at the data, don't be dogmatic, look what your customers are telling you and figure out how to get them to want to buy your service. That's really, it's about adaptation.
Well, but Lance, you got to listen to them and see. Do you tell them what they need, or do you listen to them tell you what they need?
I think you have to do a little bit of both. You have to have a huge customer focus, and if you look at all the great companies in the world, you like Apple. Steve Jobs notoriously, he didn't look at market research. He didn't want to see focus groups. He didn't want to see any of that. He knew that people loved music. He knew that people loved books. He knew that people loved their computers and they loved art. And he tried to build something that satisfied all of those needs, and that's where the iPod and the iPhone and the other components came from. Did they know what an iPhone was before it was launched? No, they had no idea. But he knew what the customer was looking for. He just gave it to them in a different distribution channel than what they had been consuming it previously.
And somehow go ahead.
No, I mean, when you think about the iPhone was launched, 12 years ago? 12 years ago. And it's how many of you in this room have iPhones right now? Okay, probably the majority. So, that's how quickly technology can be adopted, and that's why, Apple came to be a great company.
So, you said, you got to know you're right, even when other people don't know you're right, and you got to stay with it. At some point, you might not be right? You got to admit that?
Oh, made plenty of mistakes. We're sitting there launching our public company, Hotels.com, and we forgot to get the paperwork in. So we have our opportunity in Times Square, and on the big board on NASDAQ, it says Hotel Reservations Network. I cringed.
The old name.
And also, we've made mistakes. We had an opportunity. There was in China, there was a SARS epidemic. I don't know if you remember this, in the early 2000s. And there was a company that Carlyle was trying to sell, and it was a travel company that did hotel reservations in China. They were offering it for about $50 million. And, we sat around our desk and said, well, who wants to move to China? No hands went up. We decided to pass. That company became C-Trip, and now it has a $24 billion with a B, dollar valuation. Oops.
Any mistakes along the way?
Yeah, and I think, if you look at anybody that's been successful, they've all made mistakes, but the one thing is they just kept on going. There's a great book called Grit that if you're an entrepreneur, everybody should read, and it's just keep going, because most people fail because they give up. Everybody talks about Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was fired, left, started another company, came back, and made Apple a great company. Bezos, wrote off hundreds of millions of dollars in bonds because he got too far over his skis in the late 90s, early 2000s, and Amazon is one of the greatest companies in the world today. They all made mistakes along the way, but they never gave up on their dream. They kept going. And everybody I've ever met who failed, or is like, hey, this is my fourth startup, this is my fifth company, I just can't get these things to work, why can't I make it happen? So, you've tried 5 companies and you're 25 years old, or you're 35 years old. It's like, you got to stick with it, and you got to have a mission. And one of the things about being an entrepreneur is, if you can't motivate yourself, don't even step into the game. If you can't look in the mirror in the morning and motivate yourself, no one else is going to. You have to be the person that does that. You have to do it to yourself, and then you have to go do it to your team. And a lot of people get into this, and they're looking for people to push them and motivate them, and that's not how it works. When you're the lead, and it's your idea, and you're the entrepreneur, and you're the one that's trying to steer the ship, you have to be the one that firmly believes so that everybody else sees that in you.
Yeah, and there's sacrifices involved, too. Work-life balance, there's no work-life balance. You work, and then you come home and you have your family, hopefully, and and then that's your balance. You work as hard as you possibly can, because that's what it takes. It takes that kind of drive. And in terms of making new friends and going to all events and beautiful vacations, no, it just doesn't happen. You have to give it your all, and giving it your all means working as hard as you possibly can for as many hours as you possibly can, as productively as you can, and giving it the passion and energy that every business requires. So you have to look at yourself and say, is that what I want to do? So it's not for everyone.
Don't you have to have a sounding board along the way too, though? I mean, somebody to say, hey, Lance, you're over your skis, or maybe you ought to take it a different area?
Sure. I mean, and I think from being an entrepreneur, you always have to find mentors. If you haven't found people that you can talk to bounce ideas off of, because you can't do that to your staff. You generally can't do that to your board, and if you do, they'll just tell you what you want to hear. Right. You need to find people that you respect, that you believe have skills that you aspire to have eventually one day, and that you can bounce things off of. And I was very fortunate in my career. It was complete happenstance, but one of those gentlemen used to run worldwide sales at IBM, and I met him 15 years ago. And he was just one of those people that I could call and say, hey, I have this crazy idea. And he would walk me through it, and he would say, well, here's my experience. And it's not like I needed his yes or no answer. I just needed somebody that I respected who was outside of my normal vision to help me try to sort through the decisions I was trying to make at the time.
Yeah, I agree with you, Lance. My inspiration was my grandfather, who came across as an immigrant from Europe, one step ahead of the Nazis during the Second World War, with basically the shirt on his back, and ended up, through hard work and many business failures, owning buildings in New York City. And I was inspired by him. In business, I've always had a business partner. And, you know, however big your head can get, he'll bring you down pretty quickly. So, you know, there is always something wrong. I said, why aren't you doing this automation? Why aren't you taking care of this? You know, what is the problem with this? Why didn't you react to that? So you can feel pretty small pretty quick. And then I have my wife, who is a very strong person and keeps me very grounded. And I come home and, you know, take out the trash, to spend time with the kids, you know, take care of the things that need to be taken care of for the family, and write these cards and do that. So there's a lot of people who've been very successful who think they can't make a mistake. They kind of get this complex where they've made a lot of right decisions in their life and there's no one to tell them no. Fortunately, that's not my case. I have my wife and my business partner to keep me grounded.
So what do you, if you're going to have a partner, do you get the same person as you are? You try to find somebody to...
Go ahead.
I try to surround myself with the opposite of Lance because I think you need a balanced... The teams that I see fail are always the same. It's like, hey, 3 really smart tech guys started a company, or 3 amazing salespeople started this company, or 3 executives started this company. And then they didn't get anybody else or didn't find any other talent. And, you know, I am not conservative. I'm the risk taker. I'm the one who's always swinging for the fence. Historically, I had the same CFO for 2 of my companies. We were together for 15 years, and fortunately, he made so much on the last one, he decided he didn't want to work anymore. But he was sort of my alter ego. He was the conservative one. He was the, you know, what he called the adult supervision of Lance. And I came up with all the crazy ideas. He tried to figure out if we could actually sell them and make margins and things of that nature. And you have to know, first of all, you have to understand who you are before you can understand who you need. But you need people that complement you. You don't need exact identical copies of you, because if you all believe the same thing and there's groupthink, you'll all go down together.
That's true. And so, you know, my business partner has different skills than I do. He has marketing skills, he has accounting skills, he has other skills that I don't. I focus on technical and strategy and product side. And also our team is also encouraged to disagree. I mean, we have, you know, management meetings and we have a call every week, and there's a lot of contention on those calls. And you need that. You need to hear that you're wrong. You need to hear that, you know, that these factors need to be taken into consideration. You need disagreement. But when you march and you decide on a path, then you all march together.
Are all the tools here? I mean, you guys both started your businesses here. You've been very successful here. Lance, I know you're from here. David, I know you're not. Is there anything special about Dallas?
I mean, can I be an honorary Texan? I've been here more than half my life.
No, I understand. Well, I mean, you're not original.
So the answer is yes. Dallas is one of the best locations in the world, I would say. Look what's going on around here. As we sit in this new hotel that was probably opened last week, you know, based on the plants that are outside. Yeah. And so, you know, it's incredible the growth that's gone on here. When I arrived here, as a new Texan in 1982, although I had lived in Texas 3 years before, as a child. So does that count?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
It all adds up.
I put it out in my Texan passport. But anyway, so in 1982, the population in this area was probably about 2.5 million, the whole area. And now, here we are, roughly 35 years later, it's 7.2 million in this area. That's tremendous growth. And you see, look at the growth, look at the number of construction cranes, and look at the fact that, this area is absorbing 500 new people a day. 500 a day in this area. And there's no place else like it in the United States, and it's been consistent now for the last 10 or 15 years. So in terms of a business environment, this has been just tremendous. There's a great labor force here. There is, wonderful opportunity for both tech talent and, banking and finance, every conceivable skill that you need to run an organization is right here in this area. So yes, it's been tremendous, and I'm very proud of. I'm a proud adopted Texan, and very proud of the community here. And what I love about this community, the immigrant community, is that this is the hardest working, the best community that we have. In our tech department, we don't have two Johns, we don't have two Sams, but we have two Rohits. I mean, we couldn't live without, the skill and technology that the Indian American community brings. And so, we're very focused on this area, and we're very proud of this area. And I think that this is, if not the best place in the United States to start a business, certainly one of them.
Yeah, based on that, you're a Texan. You get it. I got it. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean,
because you cross back and forth. You're very familiar with the tech community and what's the entrepreneurs in California and other places.
Absolutely. At the last place, most of my team was here in Dallas, but I tried on 2 different occasions to create development teams in Silicon Valley and Seattle, and both times the entire team was swept by the latest startup, and took the last chance in San Jose. They took 40 developers in one shot.
Whoa.
I lost 40 in one day because Zynga, who was the hot social gaming company at the time, was passing out options like cookies. And so it's a very highly competitive type scenario there. And so it's always been stable. It's been more family oriented. People that are looking for a career want to add value versus people that are searching for the next bigger, better deal. And it's always worked out well for me.
As long as Lance doesn't sweep my company, our average tenure in tech is more than 4 years, and we've been in business 8. So, there's a lot of accumulated skill that you get just from having someone there and knowing your systems for a long time and the evolution of them. So, this is what, this area brings. So you're blessed to be here. I mean, this is a great place for business.
And your sense is that it's supportive? See, I would have guessed that it wasn't. That it isn't supportive. I office in Galleria, and I'm on the 18th floor of 2 Galleria Tower, and 2 floors away was the infamous and famous 16th floor, where Compaq Computer and everybody else came to life, and it's gone. They stopped raising money and stopped finding deals.
Yeah, but that's creative destruction. That's capitalism. I mean, you got to keep moving forward. As Lance says, you got to look for the next thing. He's worried about the 1,000 innovations a day from Amazon. So, we're focused on, making sure that we can run our business for the next day. It doesn't guarantee success. What it does guarantee is an opportunity.
You know who moved into the 16th floor?
Not yet.
Amazon.
Really?
Yes.
Well, there you are.
Absolutely. They took Seven Rosen's place. Let's do some, let's hear from you guys what you want to hear about. There's somebody, there we go, with a mic walking around. 2 mics walking around.
I got a third one.
Got a third one. All the way in the back. They're coming your way. You're a different zip code, so see if it works.
Hey, I just had a question. If you had multiple, as an entrepreneur, if you had multiple ideas that you consider to be innovative, how would you go about picking one to start with?
I didn't hear it. I'm sorry.
If you have a lot of ideas and you don't know which one to do, is the question, and then how do you decide which one to do?
Yeah, like, you have like a few ideas that you boiled down to that you would consider are innovative, but how would you pick which one to start, I guess?
Okay, so, I mean, Lance, you should know, this is a tech box, and you divide it into 4, okay? There's high value, easy, high value, hard, low value, easy, low value, hard. You pick high value, easy. That's how you do it.
Yeah, when you start off, focus and discipline are key. I've seen way too many young companies die because they're trying to be everything to everybody. Focus and discipline. When I started SoftLayer and we were selling cloud computer, I had my sales team would come to me, my other founders would come to me. We had the opportunity to sell co-location, to sell transit, to sell all these things that we had all done out in our career, and we could have done it in our sleep. But I kept saying, that's not our mission. Our mission is to sell cloud computing. The moment we start doing these other things, the day we lose focus.
Good points. Over here.
These days, the H-1B is the buzzword in Washington and in New Delhi both. What are your thoughts on it? Because both of you, I'm sure, have lots of those H-1B working for you.
I think the current administration is not thinking the correct way. I think we need as much talent as humanly possible in the companies that want to acquire that talent. And I think it's a disservice to try to force this nationalistic type scenario because there just aren't enough developers. I mean, I don't know what your experience is, but I'm not that large yet. We have 400 employees, and I bet I have 25, 30 open recs right now with no candidates.
So about a year ago, I was so desperate for candidates that I called Vic Thapper, to say, get me some Ruby on Rails developers. Any of you in this room Ruby on Rails? So the answer is we couldn't live without S1B. I mean, we just couldn't. And so it's the secret to me of the United States. I talked about my grandfather. I'm very pro-immigrant. And so the secret of the United States is that people still want to come here. And we want to make it an open environment, especially for skilled people that want to come here. We should be accepting every one of them. Why are we capping? Why are we putting limits on? Because all these people create growth, and in turn create jobs, and in turn create opportunity, which if there are jobs and there are opportunity, it solves all the social problems there is. The reason Dallas is not Chicago is because there are jobs here. The reason tensions are less here than in other cities is because there are jobs and economic opportunity here. You want economic opportunity, you want skilled immigrants, period.
How valid is this complaint that from the many employees that I trained someone and I was laid off 6 months later? So those particular employees who keep saying all these immigrants who come here take our jobs away. What do you think about that? Is it a valid complaint? Is it because the elected officials, they're going to listen to those people because they are the ones who are going to vote for them and give them money, not the H-1B people. So how do you...
The truth is that it creates growth. I mean, if you're looking at it purely from an economic point of view of what creates more jobs and benefits everyone, it's economic growth. The thought, if Trump does nothing else, if he grows the economy from 2 to 3%, that is a major achievement. But restricting growth by restricting immigrants is just dumb. It's just, what can I say? I mean, these are the most talented people that you can get. Our education system cannot produce enough of these people because doing math and science is hard. And we have a lot of people doing, English and other things that are just not as, education or other things that are not as valued in the marketplace. So you need people who are focused on the hard stuff, the math, science, computer science. And those people, at this point, come from overseas. And the secret of the United States is that we have had wealth of immigrants from overseas that have contributed to this country. And if you need to look any further, I think 50% of the tech startups and 50% of the NASDAQ companies are first-generation immigrants, and they basically come from 4 countries. They come from Taiwan, they come from China, they come from Israel, and they come from India. That's it. That's what happens.
Good thoughts. Over here?
Question on gut feelings versus data. Which one would you rely on most, and any regretful stories?
I can see the wheels turning in Lance's head. Hey, you're about to get us all in trouble, aren't you?
There are things you need to do strategically that you can't do based on data because it's not current. Like, you got to think ahead. You know, Lance's thoughts about cloud computing. That wasn't there, and there was no data to support it. So I wouldn't say it was a gut feeling. I would say it was just a vision for the future. And I was fortunate enough to see the internet early on to realize immediately that it was a great channel for us, and we put all our, we hitched all our horses to that wagon. So there are some things that can't be based on data. But if you make decisions based on data, you're going to make better decisions day to day.
Yeah, I mean, gut or intuition is critically important, but more important is revenue and free cash flow.
A numbers guy. Back here?
All right. So the $1 billion exit by any means of measure, right? It's an amazing success. Congratulations to both of you. And I'm sure I'm speaking for most of the people here in this room. We always wonder about that kind of a goal and place to get to, and wonder as to what happens if we get there. And my question to you is that when you did reach that point of $1 billion exit, did it change in any way, for you from the fame and from success and the money, everything, right? What changed for you after that?
Which is also a good segue to say, what are you doing? What are you doing now? Lance, take it. Well, no. I mean, aside from floating on a desert island.
Yeah, so we closed. I grew up very, very, I would say, what we call lower middle class, but I figured out now it was actually the lower class. My dad was a dairy farmer, and my mom cut hair for a living. I make more in a week than they probably made in a year. And was the first person in my family to ever go to college. And I tell everybody I loved it so much I graduated many, many times. And July 3rd, 2013, I had an event when IBM bought my company, and I stood at an ATM on Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills, giggling like a schoolgirl, checking my bank balance because I could not believe how many zeros there were on it. And I thought I had worked all of my life to get to that point, and then I figured out it's not about the money, it's because I love what I do. And I woke up the next morning, and I went to work at IBM, and I worked another 24 months, just like I had the previous 20 years, and I left, and I sat at home for about 3 days, and my wife was like, you got to get out of here. And started doing research, and started StackPath, which is the next company, and doing it again. And I have more money than I dreamed about in a lifetime. I don't have to look at money. I don't have to think about it. I can buy anything I want. I can live anywhere I want. But it's not about the money. It's about the passion that I love what I do. And it's always building new, innovative, cool toys and helping other people follow and achieve their dreams.
I better follow up real quick, because you were on CEO Spotlight shortly after you'd sold IBM, and you were back working at IBM. And I asked you at the time, I said, what's it like having a boss for the first time in 20 years? And you were not very complimentary of the concept of having a boss.
Yeah, well, you always have a boss, whether it's an investor or a board. I mean, everybody thinks the CEO is the boss, and you're never the boss. But it is different working for somebody else and executing somebody else's vision, and working for yourself and executing your vision. And there is no, there's no way to get around that to me. And I went to IBM. I spent 20 months there. There were things that I loved. There were things I didn't like. And at the end of the day, I sat down and I said, I don't believe in their go-forward vision. And I don't want to help execute it. I want to go do something else. And so I started another company.
David, talk about, Because you had a couple of moments along the way. I mean, going public and then selling and.
Well, we sold to one of the more difficult people to work for in the world. His name is Barry Diller. And he's a very brilliant man, and he taught us a lot. But he's very difficult to work for. But we worked for him for 5 years, and we did our exit, and we were asked, in fact, because the Expedia had taken over the entire company, and they wanted us, gone. So we're okay with that. And so then we did another business in the interim, and then we started Get a Room about 8 years ago. We do it because we love it. And in terms of spending habits, my wife will tell you that I squeak when I walk because I haven't changed really my spending habits. I drive, an old car. We live in a nice home, but we lived there before. And really, it hasn't changed much except for the fact that, that I can do things now for other people that I couldn't do before. I can help in different ways. I have access to wonderful people like you that I wouldn't have had before. And I wouldn't discount also in this whole process the amount luck has to play with it. Luck is a big component of your life. It's what you make of it, and you have to work hard. But, we were blessed to be here in Dallas, Texas. We were blessed to, meet the right people at the time. We were blessed to seize the opportunities that we did, and we seized them hard. But, what you'll find in common among most people who have done this is that they've worked hard for their dreams, and they work for the money. I mean, I won't make, I like earning money. I mean, I like focusing on it. It kind of cleans the mind. But they don't work exclusively for the money. They work because you like it.
Will you ever retire,
I hope not.
Lance?
I don't think so.
That's cool. What else you got? Here?
So, one question. I come from academic field, and when I talk to people, and they are thinking in terms of startups, everybody is trying to run towards Silicon Valley. Generally, the belief is there are more resources, more easy access to money is available in that region. What does it take to build a very good ecosystem in the North Texas area for the startup?
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to give back ever since I've been, had the exit, and I've been looking around at others who've had exits as well. Chris McFarland at Mastergy recently had an exit. Brad Huxtable, who had Ustream, sold at IBM, recently had an exit. And, I sort of look at it as it's our duty now to get out there and help form those relationships and grow the ecosystem, because I can tell you we sponsor incubators and startups, and they are different. The ones in Silicon Valley are mature. Those people who want to start companies go and see what is being pitched, and they see really good, innovative ideas, and it makes them go back and think about how they tell their story and how they look at their technology. To be completely honest, when I go down to Techstars and other things in Dallas, I see iterative ideas. I see ideas that are just a little bit better than what we're doing today, or a small pivot away from what we're doing today. Not true innovation. And until we break the culture of the thought process of you got to step outside your comfort zone and really be innovative and really take a chance and come up with something completely different. Right now is the opportunity of a lifetime. He talked about luck. The luck that we had was the internet and the timing and when it actually became commercially viable in the early 90s, and then the rise of it, and then now the proliferation of cloud and everything else. Every single service or software and piece of hardware in the world is being turned into a service right now. And when you look at the largest companies in the world, like IBM, HP, Dell, EMC, Oracle, they're all struggling because they all sold hardware and they all sold software, and those pieces are being turned into a service and being consumed over the internet. And so if you want an idea, be thinking about that. What is something that was been sold in a traditional manner that can be consumed as a consumptive style service over the internet?
Having said that, California is probably the worst business environment that you could possibly be in. The regulation, the cost of labor, the cost of housing, just the general anti-business sentiment in the state. I mean, it's just horrible. So we have every tool here to be able to create our own Silicon Valley here.
But you were back to the point. You were a disruptor. At your time, you were a disruptor. You were not taking something that somebody else was doing and, putting lipstick on the pig or something. You were coming up with new ideas.
Yes, I mean, we brought, hotel reservations to the internet. So that was disruptive. But at the same time, we did it here in Dallas, Texas, and we did it here with, our own money based on cash flow.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think we have to get that out there, because every time somebody asked me, where was SoftLayer headquartered, and I said Dallas, people looked at me a little weird, because everybody expected me to say San Francisco or Silicon Valley, because they just naturally said the Creator Cloud has to have been from one of those.
We like that. Okay, we got time for one question. Right here?
Yes, this is more like a comment instead of a question. I really enjoyed your session. It's really wonderful to have such distinguished speakers. At B12 Consulting, we are doing a lot to empower women and girls in this nation. And I would believe that girls and, women in general would have a lot to take from people such as you, so successful. And I would like to make everybody very aware of the language they use. When they use things such as like a schoolgirl, the schoolgirls right now are very advanced, and I think we have to become a little bit careful what we say, and no disrespect intended, but I have run into a lot of successful women, and I think one of the ways we have to move the nation forward is by bringing in women who are motivated, empowered, and can get into a position, such as yourselves, whether it be in STEM or if it's in any other field, even if it's English or any other professions. So my question would be more as what is your effort in the field of empowering women of this nation?
Well, sure. My last job, I worked for probably the most powerful woman in the world, I would assume, as far as the corporate world goes. I've always, in tech, it's hard because we continuously look for talent. And I can tell you that the number of resumes that come in because most of my hires are developers, DevOps, and system administrators. The number of resumes that come in are literally 1 to 100, female to male. Those are what's coming in. And so we've been tasked with how do we go back to the universities, how do we create programs with them to get more females involved in the field of tech. Because it seems like it's been a male-dominated discipline, especially inside the universities, because that's all we're seeing. And so it's a challenge, and inside, our organizations, I don't care, I've given my speech forever to my team. It's like, I don't care if you're black, white, brown, green, red, whatever. I don't care about your gender, your orientation, your religion, what country you're from. I don't care about any of that. I care about really 3 things. Are you a decent human being? Do you work and play well with others? And are you going to add value to this organization? Because that's all I really care about. And when those 3 things happen, I don't care who it is or where they came from. And we have to get over all these things and hang-ups that people have, and until you build it inside of a culture of an organization, we're never going to get there. But hopefully that's what the startups are doing, that's what the young companies are doing, and they're making a change.
I'll say this. C-Trip in China that I spoke with earlier, we work with them now. We provide inventory for them. And they have a woman CEO, a woman CFO, a woman COO, and the head of tech is a woman. So it can be done.
And the most encouraging thing I heard not too long ago is the Bobby Lyle School of Engineering at Southern Methodist University is about 40% women right now. And they're getting more and more applications all the time. We're virtually out of time, but I got to ask one last thing. Lance, I'll start with you. So what are we going to be talking about in technology and what's going on in this community 5 years from now when we're back on this stage? What's coming?
Yeah, I think we've hit the point of now, we've hit big data fatigue. And it's now that everybody in the world has captured the data, what are we actually going to start doing with this data? And I think machine learning, artificial intelligence, and the next logical thing is what are we going to do with all of this data that everybody is capturing? Because I can tell you that's the premise of my new company, is I believe the only way we can do security going forward is not to be matching what we've seen in the past. We have to look at attributes of traffic, and what looks normal gets through, and what looks like it hasn't happened before should be blocked until we can figure out what it is. And that's going to take machine learning and algorithms and things that happen by machines. It can no longer be done by people. And I think it's going to hit every single industry up and down the stack, and it'll be the focus of the next 5 years.
Good points. David?
2 words, I agree.
You guys are great. I can't wait to see the third iteration, after you get another $1 billion exit for these two businesses, see what you do again. Thanks for having us. We appreciate it.